Hey everyone, it's Aesah, and welcome to my guide for the best anomalies for top meta comps. Recently requested by a TFT coaching member in the Discord. So once again, I'd like to remind you guys, if you have any content requests, just let me know, because chances are a lot of other people are also looking for the same thing, and I'm always looking for ideas. So we go to TFT coaching Discord. And other TFT resources, we made an anomaly tier list. It's a little old, November 26th. Some have been buffed or nerfed since then, but overall, I think it's still a pretty good start. So I'll just look through the top comps and then kind of talk about what I think the best anomalies are. So for Nocturne 3, I really like damage amp because Nocturne, being automata and quick striker, doesn't have any natural damage amp. Attack speed is a little less valuable because of quick striker, but AD is still really good. When you take an AD one, you really want to make sure it amplifies his ability and not just does AD damage. So, for example, something like Mini Me's doesn't actually make Nocturne's ability stronger, um, even though it is technically an AD anomaly. Would much rather have something like Power Absorption, which gives Nocturne 80%, and this will affect his ultimate. Um, Again, like strength training is pretty good as well. Same concept here. I know these are both in C tier, but they're both good on Nocturne. Uh, yeah, they'll make his AD strong. They'll make his ultimate stronger. Again, some that will not affect his ultimate are like Titanic Strikes. This only affects your basic attacks, or Wolf Familiars. This is just kind of flat damage on top of your ability. So Nocturne, any AD one, and then any damage amp one is good. Damage amp could be something like Comeback Story, is really good. Bully is really good, especially if you're gonna have 3-star. Um, any of these damage ones, amp ones are fine. Freestyling, depending on what version you're playing, maybe a little bit weaker. When you're taking a damage amp anomaly in general, you want to be getting around like 25% at least damage amp. Um, so with freestyling, you'll need like 5 traits in, which isn't too hard depending on what board you're playing. But if you're only playing the quick striker, 4 quick striker, or automata, then you might not have the main traits because you'll just have 3 traits with it. Right? Next is Kogmaw. Kogmaw is a pretty unique unit because he uses the most mana out of any unit in the game and also attacks the most. So ones that scale with your attacks. There's actually a really specific one called 1,000 Cuts right here. This is going to be the best thing you can get on Kog'Maw, but there's also magic training on cast. Your team gains 2 ability power. I guess this actually doesn't matter for how much you cast, but Kog'Maw, it doesn't matter how much you cast, but Kog'Maw uses the most mana because he attacks so much. He also doesn't have any natural AP like Dominators do, for example. So having this is also really good on Kog'Maw. That being said, frequently when you're playing Kog'Maw, you want to scale into the fight with Rageblade plus his ability scaling. So oftentimes you actually prefer to have a tank anomaly. You're definitely not going to skip either of these two, but you would prefer to have a tank anomaly than most damage ones, just so you can scale into the fight. So let's talk about some tank anomalies. And real briefly, they're not that good in melee comps because, for example, with Nocturne, there's no guarantee that your tank can survive longer, or your Nocturne can survive longer than your tank. But for front to back comps like Kog'Maw, tank anomalies are really good. If you already have Garen, you can get a little bit of extra value with the HP ones on Garen, like Giant Size, or otherwise, if you have Scar 3, it tends to be more value on Scar 3. Um, but Garen is always going to be good as well. So the best tank anomalies are going to be Giant Size, Roots, Fortified, Protective Shielding. These are probably the best ones. The resist ones are a little bit underpowered, but Bulwark I probably would not skip. Bulwark or Thornskin or Stoneskin. Thornskin is probably the weakest of all of them. A lot of the power budget on this one is reflect damage, which just again is just a flat amount of damage. Typically, any anomaly that only does a flat amount of damage is going. Slow Cooker, even though in S tier, this is not going to be that good at this comp because you're really relying on your Kogmaw to deal damage, and Slow Cooker, again, just adds damage to your team. Much rather have a tank anomaly that allows your Kogmaw to scale. This, even though it's under tank, it doesn't make your unit. Oh, Scuttle Familiar is also really good. Emissary. So emissaries, a lot of times you'll either want to play around who you have upgraded by 4/6. If that's Corki, you can use any AD or damage amp, very similar to Nocturne, just because like Corki doesn't have any damage amp built in, so it's going to be a lot of value. For melee, if you have Mbessa 2 or Echo 2 or Vi 2, then you can go with some of the Bruiser ones. Diving in is going to be good for Bruisers. They have a lot of stats. Otherwise, you can kind of go with the same kinds of concepts, AD or damage amp. So Sentinel, Heimer, and Alawi. So Heimer has a. You can also play Corki in this comp as well. I recently made a video on it. Check that out. So same thing with Corki, but with Heimer, a lot of times benefits from Visionary, and if you have blue buff especially, each cast effectively gives him an extra proc of blue buff, which is extremely valuable. So mana anomalies are really good on this guy. There's 2 mana anomalies that stand out. There's Kill Streak. I think there's just 2 total, honestly. Kill Streak and Nothing Wasted. These are both S tier. At the time of making this, they have both gotten nerfed very heavily, but they're both still S tier. So they're, especially with blue buff and Visionary. Damage amp is a little bit less valuable if you have a lot of academy items, but still can be fine as well. And now some AP anomalies. Another one that scales with Visionary and blue buff is Fireball. Makes you, the more you cast, the more you can proc this, and Visionary Heimer with blue buff can pretty much proc this as much as anything. Real briefly, I want to mention this has a maximum range, which is why I didn't mention it for Kogmaw. Kogmaw actually outranges Fireball, and then he isn't actually able to cast. A couple in general that you can just always use any comp is Dragon Soul and the finisher. These are kind of just generic. You can use them on almost any board. Otherwise, yeah, magic training, same concept that we talked about for Kogmaw. And if you have specifically Archangel Staff, you can go with something like Magic Expert that gives you 40% more AP, because this one's a little tricky to understand, but it scales with how much AP you already have. So you need a lot of AP. Good. You probably need more than 200 for sure, and then it gets better the more you have. Ranata is very similar to Heimer, both visionary backliners. Once again, with both of these units, Heimer is infinitely scaling. Ranata, you're frequently building Archangels, so a lot of times you're scaling into the fight. So I did mention some of the carry anomalies, but again, you can always use these tank anomalies. In fact, I would, in playing either of these comps, I would not skip like Deep Roots, Fortified, Giant Size, Protective Shield. With the Sentinel frontline, I might skip some of the resist ones, like Bulwark, Stone Skin, and Thorn Skin. But I wouldn't skip like Scuttle Familiar. Yeah, all the HP ones. Enforcer. So Enforcers gain damage, amp, and attack speed. So a lot of times you're gonna want AD here. Your primary carry Vi, you can use some of the melee ones, like I mentioned, diving in. A couple that I didn't mention, invisibility and last chance. These are also gonna be good for AD. They just give anything that kind of gives you a mix of defenses and damage tends to be really good for bruisers because they're kind of balanced around being narrow. So they give you a little bit extra basically. Like if a pure damage one gives you say like 100 value of damage, and a pure tank one is 100 value of tank, a bruiser one will give you like 75 of each. And if you're able to use both of them, then that's going to be Black Rose Silco. This will probably be the last one I talk about. So Silco gets a lot of AP. So again, we mentioned Magic Expert could work, and this would make other things like Magic Training less good. Energy Absorption is not very good either. You might intuitively think that you can scale with getting 5% of the ability power of all the Dominators. That's not very much. Almost all of the power budget in this anomaly is initial 30 AP, and with Silco, you don't really want more AP. Dominators unless you have Magic Expert, which scales with that great amount of AP. You really want to avoid things that just give flat damage as well. Like I said, like Laser Eyes. I mean, you can't even if you have like Mordekaiser, you could put like Laser Eyes on him and he's in front, but it's not amplifying his ability. It's just giving kind of like flat damage. Same thing with, I don't know where it is, but the one where the stars orbit the champion. That's another one that's just like flat damage. So you want to avoid stuff like that. Silco, similar to Heimer, really benefits from casting a lot. Every single cast, he gets stronger with that Dominator, so nothing wasted is good. Kill Streak is fine as well, but he's a higher mana unit, so he doesn't benefit as much. But Kill Streak and Nothing Wasted are probably going to be the best Silco ones, and as always, you can take the frontline ones to allow your Dominator to. That's going to wrap it up on this video for some of the best anomalies and top meta comps. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the Discord. Thanks for watching.